I have tears welling up for some reason.
Now. Behavior is just the surface of things. We really want to go to the deepest roots.
I feel very privileged, but then it's also like this guilt. My stomach feels weird right now.
When people saw the value in what you have to offer, you were able to see the value in yourself.
Oof, yeah.
Welcome back to the Conscious Economics YouTube channel. I'm Rhiannon Roseland. I'm the founder of Conscious Economics, and we are a growing community of artists, entrepreneurs, and people just like you who want to make the world a better place. Today, I'm going to be watching with you a new series that we've created around financial therapy. Now, I know what you're thinking. Therapy, blah. Finance, ew. And we get that feeling and we understand it. But we want to destigmatize not only therapy, but financial therapy, because money's complicated and it actually has a lot to do with some of the things that many of our generation feel uncomfortable with that's happening in the world. So our special guest who has opened up her own personal story for you to sit back and watch is Reni the Resource. She's a Canadian YouTuber who has blown up in the personal finance space. She was just named one of the top 30 under 30 by Bay Street Bull. She left her corporate gig, became a full-time creator, and is now helping people all across the country and around the world get right with their money and their finances. And who's leading the session? The one and only Aseel. You guys know her on the channel. She's our in-house financial therapy expert. She worked on Bay Street for many years, managing multi-million-dollar portfolios, and then decided that something was missing, went back to school, became a therapist, combined the skills, and is now here and helping people rediscover their relationship and their blocks with money. So let's go into this episode and check it out together.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another Mindfulness and Money session. Today I'm here with our incredible guest, Reni.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this conversation, and thank you to all who are watching, because I think this is something that we need to do more of. I'm Reni, as you said, and I am a financial literacy content creator. So I create content on my YouTube channel about financial literacy, career development, and lifestyle. Financial literacy is something that's been a part of my life since I was 4 years old. That's my earliest memory of it. And I think that's very unusual for most people. So in 2020, I actually purchased my first house, and then people had so many questions about how I did it and stuff like that. So I decided to create a YouTube channel and talk about that.
This is really great. And I've seen some of her videos. I tell you, please follow this woman. She actually knows what she's talking about, and she has a really cool style to go about it. But what's really interesting about that, and the reason I'm very excited to have you with us today, is because sometimes there's a misconception that people in the field just have all their shit figured out. And in reality, I'm telling you, I'm a financial therapist myself, and there's things I have to work on every single day when it comes to this area in our lives, because it's so complex, it's intricate, and it's connected to so many layers of our lives. So the fact that you are a financial literacy educator and you're still willing to show up and talk about some of the emotions and the traumas you have around money just goes to show you that, you know, everyone deals with these things. So you may not be in the industry at all, but we want to invite you to be part of this conversation, because this is a movement we're building towards a conscious economy.
In this session, Aseel actually uses an exercise called Money Egg. I know that sounds weird, but you actually draw an egg shape on a piece of paper and then think about the memories that you have with money. The positive ones, draw a little plus sign beside, the negative ones, a negative sign. When Reni did this with Aseel, so much came up. I couldn't believe it. When you watch, see what comes up for you.
Would you like to start with the positive memories or the negative memories?
One thing that I noticed when I was actually writing these down was most of the experiences are both positive and negative. So I know you told me to pick either one, but most of them were both. So
yeah. Well, I actually noticed that too, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to start the focal point there. And that actually is very common. A lot of our memories are nuanced, and that's what makes it a little bit complex to decipher. So let's start with only positive ones for now, and then we can explore the nuanced one in a bit, because they probably have a bit more to uncover.
So a positive memory that I had was actually starting my YouTube channel because it represents financial freedom for me. I was working on Bay Street just like you, and I was burnt out, I would say. So I started my YouTube channel around while I was still working, and being able to make passive income and it was something that I actually enjoyed, was a very positive experience for me. And now obviously I'm doing it full time. So it represents, I guess, financial freedom for me. And it's a moment that I wish I started earlier, but yeah, it was a great moment for me.
What stands out for you from that memory?
I guess it's pushing past my fears, because I've wanted to start a YouTube channel for a very long time, but it was pushing past my fears and actually putting myself out there, able to be judged by everyone, but actually creating my own thing rather than building someone else's dream. It's a very pivotal moment for me, and I won't forget it.
So when you look back at this, was there a specific point where that was the point you made that decision?
The decision to leave my job
The
and
decision to
focus.
start your YouTube channel.
It was actually when people started encouraging me. So I think I always wanted to do it since I was very young, but I didn't think I had any value to offer on YouTube. I was like, fashion, that niche is very saturated, lifestyle is very saturated, so what's gonna differentiate me from everyone? But then when I bought my house, people had a lot of questions about it, so I was like, okay, I can probably start a YouTube channel, and I wanted to, so that was like my into it, because people were already saying, yeah, we wanna know everything, tell us all the details, so it kind of pushed me into it, and I'm glad that I even asked people if I should start it, yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is, when people saw the value in what you have to offer, you were able to see the value in yourself.
Oof, yeah. Yeah, the way you put that is perfect, yeah.
I love how Aseel helped Reni make that connection. Did you see how it wasn't until other people started reflecting her value as a creator that she believed it herself? That's happened to me so many times. It's like I'm doing something and I don't see the value in it until somebody else recognizes it in me. It's actually called mirroring, and it's positive. If we have people around us that we love and trust and they can reflect back what we're good at, it can give us more confidence to take that step, just like what Reni shared.
Okay, well, let's explore more and see if there's a pattern that emerges out of that. Do you have any other positive experiences you want to share with us?
One positive experience as well was I drew a briefcase, and it represents me starting work, because I had this thing where I didn't like to ask my parents for money. So when I actually started working full time and I actually had real money, not that I was making much, but I had my own money, more than I'd ever made before. That was a very positive moment for me, because it was like, oh, I don't have to ask anyone for money. I'm self-reliant, and could be a negative thing as well, but maybe you'll help me explore.
Well, you indicated positive because it indicated your ability to create your own wealth, but I'm also curious about why you chose briefcase to represent that memory.
I don't know, because I've never actually carried a briefcase in my life, but but I don't know. I just thought briefcase would be a stereotypical thing to represent work, and I was working on Bay Street where everyone's carrying briefcases. I wasn't, but I just thought it would be a stereotypical thing to represent that.
Okay, well, there's no right or wrong. These are just things that surface. They're coming from our subconscious mind. That's why I love art therapy as a tool to help us get a window into this conversation, because you never know what comes up, and there's always things that you can reflect on and ask yourself, I chose briefcase even though I left Bay Street and I chose a different career, but there's something still about that represents wealth for you. So it's interesting to explore why that is.
Yeah, and maybe it was just my first instance with wealth, working on Bay Street, and it's the typical thing to do, especially as I'm Nigerian. So it's a very typical thing you're supposed to be a doctor, engineer, lawyer. I'm none of those, obviously, but my parents are both lawyers, and I didn't follow the traditional path, but at least it was like, oh, she's working in banking. So, it's something. I feel like even starting my YouTube channel, maybe I wanted to prove myself and work in the traditional workforce before I even ventured into something different, just so I could prove that I can do it and then move on to my own
chose
thing.
not to.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus YouTube was my only choice.
Exactly.
That's a really interesting thing to uncover and see how these conversations can lead into much deeper realizations. So in your case, you wanted to choose the traditional path first to prove that path is something attainable for me. I just choose a different path for myself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, this was another amazing connection that Aseel helped Reni make. Do you see how Reni associates wealth with the briefcase? And do you see how she talks about her parents being lawyers? Think about it. Lawyers do carry a briefcase to work. So there is this really traditional notion when Reni thinks about work, even though now she's doing a less traditional creative job. I can feel that connection with so many creators that we talk to in our community who feel like they can't earn a lot of money doing a less traditional vocation because of some of these beliefs that they have programmed from childhood or parents or generational values. So this was something, again, that it resonated so deeply with me. I can see this coming up with our community, and it really makes me think twice. If you at home have experienced something similar, comment below and tell us what kind of values your parents instilled in you. What symbol comes up in your mind when you think about work or wealth? Just right away, go with the first thing that comes up and share it below. Let's keep watching and see what comes up next.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Now that I've warmed you up with some positive memories, maybe you want to share either a mixed memory, like I know you said you had some of them, you said are a bit of both. Is there anything standing up for you?
Maybe a negative memory would be so I drew an outlet mall, which is like, for those who don't know, when you go to the mall, but they're like, everything's on sale at those malls. And it's just a very big part of my childhood because my mom typically would take us to the outlet mall, and then she loved shopping. So I would be there for hours and hours and hours. And to this day, I hate shopping, but it's not just that, it's that even when I do shop, I only shop sales. Like I don't really buy anything full price, like clothing wise, because I don't think my mom has ever bought anything full price. So it really impacted the way that I shop.
As you're telling me this, are you aware of any sensations in your body?
Yeah, my stomach, I don't know, my stomach feels weird right now. Yeah, is that a normal thing that happens?
So the reason I ask, so part of this journey is really, so we're very much aware of behavior, but behavior is just the surface of things. Underneath behavior is thought, then there's emotion, and before everything is sensation. A sensation is where we feel it in our body first. So to process things, we don't necessarily just focus on the behavioral change because it can still be a superficial change. We really want to go to the deepest roots, and part of that is really becoming aware of all the different shifts in our body as we go through different memories. Okay. So it's interesting because was the stomach movement there when you were talking about YouTube, for example? It wasn't, right? So this is the interesting thing about this is once we start understanding how our body is connected and a guiding system for us, then next time you are making a financial decision and you feel this thing in your stomach, you're gonna understand it better. It brings you much more self-awareness and it helps you with your decision making. So it's important to create this embodied somatic experiences as we explore some of these things so that it can also help us process these stored emotions that haven't been processed yet. It's stored in us, and our body is there's lots of things stored in our body.
That makes sense. Yeah, I never noticed that before, but yeah, it's like my stomach dropped talking about it.
Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah.
And this is normal, but you're talking about it for a reason because part of you is ready to let go of these things. What's interesting is you're telling me, I've seen my mom buy clothes on sale and now I can only buy clothes on sale. What about this is something you would want to change?
Being able to spend freely on myself and not feel bad about spending on myself would be something. Like, I feel like I have positive memories here where I put flights. Like, I'm fine with going on a vacation and spending money on that and experiences. But when it comes to things like clothes, I will never buy something full price for myself. Yeah. But for a gift for someone else, I am fine with that. So I need to maybe figure out why that is.
And this is why I'm asking, because it all depends on not just what you're doing, but the meaning you associate with that behavior. So somebody else could be buying clothes on discount and taking pride in that because they consider themselves to be a savvy shopper. Somebody else may be buying clothes on discount and feeling a lot of shame and guilt because they're associating that as, I don't deserve a full price item. So it's not so much about what you're doing, but more so about the meaning you're associating with what you're doing. And the reason I'm curious about this specific memory you brought up is not necessarily the fact that you buy your clothes on sale, but the fact that you associated that with a negative thing. And that tells me there's a negative association you've attributed to what that means for you. What is that meaning that you've associated? Because sometimes changing the meaning is all you need to do without necessarily changing the behavior. And sometimes it is changing the behavior when you realize that behavior itself is not serving me. So it all depends on being intentional and mindful in your approach to these conversations.
I feel like it's a mixture of both because I do take pride in being savvy. Like, I bought this recently and it was on sale and I posted it on my Instagram story and I was like, guys, go buy this, it's on sale. So I take pride in showing people that you don't have to spend a lot of money to still like look fashionable and look good. But then I also want to know like why I can only buy things that are on sale.
I see.
And I don't know why.
So when you see an item that you love and it's not on sale, it's an automatic no.
Yeah, typically I'll be like, okay, it'll go on sale eventually. Like, I'll just wait. And oftentimes, you know, if it's a really nice item, it's gonna be gone by the time they have the sale time.
So if I gave you a magic wand and tell you you can change anything you want in your financial behaviors today, what would it be?
I have enough money to buy things full price, so it's not even my financial situation. I guess it would just be being able to spend on myself unapologetically and, you know, being fine with that. That's what I would change.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would release the guilt associated with buying an item full price.
Exactly.
One of the tools that I came up with, because I actually very much resonate with that specific issue. I struggled with it myself. I actually started buying myself gift cards. Instead of going to the mall and using my credit card or debit card, I'd buy a gift card because then it'll have the intentionality of treating myself. This is my gift to myself. And there's a different energy that goes with that. So I invite you to try it out. Something you may try, it may not land for you or it may not work for you, but continue exploring where else is this guilt and shame showing up in my life? Because there's a lot of patterns in our life usually. And money is the reason I love this area to explore is because it's a direct reflection on the relationship we have with ourselves. The relationship with money is very correlated to our self-image, to our relationship with others. So it's connected to so many layers, and I invite you to kind of consider where else is guilt and shame showing up in my life? Because sometimes there's patterns that also are worth exploring there. Just to kind of explore a different kind of memory, before we get into that, how are you feeling?
My stomach's still there where it was before.
It's still there?
Yeah.
So if you want to move this energy somewhere, what would you do with it?
I guess I just have to release it, right? I don't know how to release it though.
So tell me a bit more about how it feels.
It just feels heavy. That's how I would describe it.
Your stomach dropped and there's a heaviness here. Is there any other sensation, any other parts, or is it mainly your stomach?
My breathing's a little heavier.
So your breathing is heavy, your stomach is heavy, there's a lot of heaviness.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like
Yeah.
you're sinking in the chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Be with it. Sometimes we rush in trying to get rid of these uncomfortable sensations and uncomfortable feelings, and being with it is one of the ways we can actually understand what it's telling us. So I'm just gonna give you a few minutes to be with it. And you tell me what comes up.
I have tears welling up for some reason.
Tears are a release.
Which feels good.
Are you aware of anything in your body now?
Don't have the heaviness as much.
It's a bit lighter.
Yeah.
There's a reason these things come up at the timing they do. You know, it's an indication that we're ready to release them. And releasing them isn't necessarily something momentarily. Like what you just did created a shift in this memory, in this conversation, in this pattern for you. And there could be a ripple effect around that for the next few days or few weeks or the next time you go shopping, this experience right now will actually bubble up again. And sometimes it gets harder before it gets easier because there's resistance to change naturally. I really encourage you to practice lots of self-care and self-love routines as you're going through financial therapy, because all these things that surface, sometimes they're messy and we don't know what to do with them. And mindfulness practices and self-care practices help us really release and be with our body. Like sometimes if we're in society and first of all, we don't even feel things in our body anymore because we're so disconnected.
Yeah.
And the minute we do, we just want to get rid of the feeling. But what I just did here is paused. And before talking makes us in our head. Like we have to slow down because feeling is a much slower vibration than thinking. So it has to be a much slower pace.
Yeah. And I think especially because I'm self-employed now, everything's very fast-paced because, if I don't work, it's, we don't make money when you don't work as the self-employed person. So I'm going on vacation soon, so I'm excited to slow down and take time for myself.
I so appreciate how open and vulnerable Reni just was there. Crying literally in front of us, showing us how much that impacted her and how much she was holding that in her body. I also love how Aseel really helped Reni to feel her feelings, not run from them, just observe, feel them. So many of us have things that feel uncomfortable, but we override them, we overpass them, or we think that that's just how we're gonna feel forever. And so I love that through financial therapy, we're able to actually break that mold, break some of those chains, and be able to reprogram into things that make us feel better. And that's exactly what happened here. Now for you guys below, comment and let us know, what are the feelings that come up in you when you think about shopping?
We probably have time for one more memory. So pick one that's standing out for you.
One memory that's mixed is, so I played soccer from the time I was 4 till I was 18. I played soccer competitively, and it's a positive memory because obviously I got to make a lot of friends. I got to travel all around the States and Canada because I was playing competitively and things like that. But then I also have this negative, my sister and I were actually talking about this recently, and it's kind of a negative feeling, seeing how much our parents sacrificed for us to give us the best life possible. And I feel very privileged, but I think it's like this guilt associated with having this privilege. I know a lot of my friends, their parents couldn't afford to send them to play. Like basically every weekend or every other weekend, we'd be in the States. So they would have to leave work on Friday, drive us to the States or fly us to the States, pay for a hotel, pay for the tournament. Like it's all very expensive. And now that I think about it as an adult, I'm like, wow, they really gave a lot to us because my sister still plays to this day. So they gave a lot to me, my sister and I, not just with soccer, but I think this is like all the extracurriculars that I did. And it's just because they wanted us to be like well-rounded. When we got older, we'd get great jobs, things like that. Mm-hmm. But I just know it was very expensive. It was very time consuming for them. And I'm thinking, I am so tired after work. I can't even imagine like parenting after work and then driving to wherever. So I don't know, it all just makes me emotional. I'm grateful, super grateful, but then it's also like this guilt that I face as well. Even just speaking about my privilege, like I have YouTube videos where I literally speak about everything I have is because of what my parents have given me. And then my mom watched that video, she's like, you're not giving yourself any credit. Like you're just acting as if you haven't put in any work. Mm-hmm. So yeah. That was a lot. I don't know.
It's a really great feedback from your mom. And it's interesting she mentioned that because that was also what was coming up for me as I heard you speak about this memory. There's an intense gratitude for your parents, which is beautiful. It's emerging in every word you're sharing. Mm-hmm. It's very evident, the love and the respect and the appreciation you have for all the sacrifices they've done, the time commitment, the financial commitment, and everything in between. But there's also, like you said, that layer of guilt and sadness that's also emerging. Mm-hmm. So I'm really curious about that. Like, what is the guilt for?
I don't know. Like maybe because they had to put us first over everything else. It's like, how can I ever repay them for that? I think that's where it comes from. Like, will I ever be able to?
But what I'm also hearing from that is I'm not gonna be ever able to repay them. And somewhere underlying all these shares is like, I'm not worthy of this in a way.
I think that like, especially with pop culture and things like that, people make, like if you're like a privileged kid or something, people make you feel like you didn't work for what you've gotten, I think that's something. And people would make me feel like I have it easy because my parents are lawyers, like they have the money to, stuff like that. But it's not anything I did that made me worthy of this. It's just that I was born into this family, and I always acknowledge that. I'm always grateful for it.
This is really interesting because this is a very common limiting belief across many people, regardless where they're born. And that is, unless there's a lot of sacrifice and difficulty in acquiring money or success or wealth or fill in the blanks, whatever that thing may be, then I'm not worthy of it. And that is just why part of financial therapy, the first layers of what we work on is the concept of deservability, is the concept of believing that we are worthy of all these things that we want simply by being human. Like it's our birthright to have this access to abundance and to all the things we want on this planet. And it's very interesting because there's always guilt associated with us getting it, depending on how difficult that path was. Because we're comparing our path to others, but also everyone else's insecurities and resentment is being projected onto us as well, which makes this topic extremely complex and sensitive territory to navigate. I really thank you for sharing all that. And it's interesting that the word guilt resurfaced. We talked about guilt in the spending habits. Now there's the guilt in how this wealth was acquired to begin with. So naturally, if there's guilt associated with how money is coming in, naturally there's going to be guilt in how it's coming out. So there's some work to be done around this to continue exploring this topic. While this process can be difficult as it's happening, but once it's released, it gives us power back in our lives.
I don't know about you guys, but I am just feeling such admiration for Reni. She's been so vulnerable. I can see how much she loves her family. And I also see in that segment how mindful she is about the privilege that she has, but also really wanting to serve people and serve her community. So I think that's my major takeaway. When we talk about this idea of privilege shame, I think we have to remember that if we have privilege and everybody has varying degrees of something, that we can use that as a currency to be able to help and support and give. And that's exactly what Reni does. This segment just solidifies. You should check out Reni the Resource. She's an incredible person who's doing so much for the community in finance, and she's worth a follow. Thank you so much for tuning in to this segment of live financial therapy sessions. And if you want to experience financial therapy for yourself, you can. If you go to consciouseconomics.ca, we offer something called monthly economic healing sessions, which is group financial therapy. You can check it out. And if you want to be in the hot seat and come and sit down with Aseel one-on-one for one of these segments, then email us at the same place. We hope to see you next time, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Reni, for joining me again. Please tell people where they can find you and all the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me, and to Conscious Economics, thank you for having me. You can find me on YouTube at XOReni, that's XORENI. And I just launched a podcast called Don't Go Broke Trying, basically helping people not go broke trying to live their best lives.
Beautiful.
And I hope that I can have you on the podcast, because that would be a great, I think this topic is so important and we need to teach more people. So,
yeah, we're going out for a drink. I know it.
Yes, please. So you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all those platforms at XOReni.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.